All right, we're going to try this one more time. I hope this now works. Welcome to Full Out Chats. I'm your host, Steve Solberg. Sorry about that with the technical difficulties earlier. Hopefully this is better. Hopefully now that we are doing this one more time, just restarting this and making sure that this works. Can somebody just comment? Does this sound better? Can somebody just make a comment? Does this sound better? Am I still choppy? Is it frozen or anything like that? I see a thumbs up. It's working. Okay, hopefully this worked out better. All right, let's see if we can. Yeah, we'll get Jared here to join.
There we go.
Better?
Yep.
Oh, it was just a connection thing. No big
Yep.
deal. Okay, so once again, everybody, I'm here with Jared Erlenbaugh, who is currently work for NCA Speed Camps, also is program director and coach at ICE All-Stars in Barrington, and also is the head coach for the U.S. Junior Coed team, and also is an NCA staffer. And like I said, I really wanted to get Jared on here because he's literally done every style. He's worked with high school, collegiate, all-stars, everything. And one thing that I just absolutely been telling people about, if you want to see one of the best, not just junior co-ed routines I've ever seen, just one of the best junior routines I've ever seen. That U.S. co-ed junior routine last year was unfreaking believable. I remember after seeing it live, I basically chased you down just to say, "Holy cow, man! That was
Yeah, I
that was
remember.
a phenomenal. I mean, seriously, it blew the roof off.
Yeah, those
And
kids were incredible.
it was incredible. It was an incredible routine. But before we get there, let's start from the beginning. Kind of just talk about where did you grow up, your upbringing, and then kind of just how did you get into the whole cheerleading thing?
So, born and raised in the greater Chicagoland area, Hoffman Estates, if Illinois people are watching. Um, and then my background started actually in gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
I started gymnastics when I was 7. Um, kind of did gymnastics all the way up until my freshman year in high school. I broke my back.
Oh, geez.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, so had a pretty significant injury that kind of curtailed my desire for a gymnastics future. And so then my junior year of high school, I started cheerleading, and then the rest goes from there. I went cheered for a year in high school, 2 years in high school, and then an all-star year my senior year. Then I went to Illinois State first, and when some coaching issues happened there, I transferred to Kentucky, and then did my did my time there. Had probably the best time of my life, great experience, and that just kind of turned into my coaching career.
I found that was one of the pictures I was able to find of you.
That's a good one. I love that throwback game. Come on.
I mean, talk about that. I mean, that's kind of where I know I first met you was when you were at the University of Kentucky.
Mhm.
Cheered with some of my really good friends. I believe did you cheer with Reese? Cheer with Reese
Yep.
White? That era? Yep, that was a great
Yep.
era of Kentucky cheer. Kind of talk about that. First of all, I didn't know that you were at Illinois State for a year. I did not know that's where you
Yeah.
started at.
I went there for a few years actually.
Okay.
And then the coaching change happened, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I was just in my athletic prime, and figured might as well take a chance on doing something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Kentucky. I cheered with awesome. I mean, every generation of cheerleaders at
Yes.
Kentucky puts out some legendary people, but I got to cheer with Jeremy Lumpkin and
Mm-hmm.
Allie Greer, now Lumpkin.
Mm-hmm.
In that picture with me is Jacob, who's still one of my favorite people in the entire world. And all those people have gone on to some really incredible careers in the cheerleading industry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Reese, who coached for you he's still coaching with you, isn't he?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah, I got very lucky that I was around a bunch of just brilliant cheerleading minds who challenged me to just be better and learn more at all
Mm-hmm.
times. That's the best part of cheering there is you're just around all these other people that just have that much of a love and passion, and it helps grow your own as well.
I mean, that's kind of the consistent thing that I've been hearing a lot from people I've been able to have the opportunity to interview is just once you get surrounded by greatness and surrounded by people who just want to be great,
Yep.
It's just a different thing. You just can't explain it.
It's addictive.
Yeah. It's a great way to put it. People talk about like you're addicted. This cheer thing, once they get your claws in you, you're in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Yeah,
it's crazy. So tell me, like, how did you kind of think? Because obviously, if you're at Illinois State, you've at least heard of Kentucky, know the greatness of Kentucky. How did you, I guess, kind of hear about? You know what? I'm going to try out there. Kind of what was the? Obviously, you said there was a coaching change, but kind of why Kentucky and why? What kind of said? You know what? I'm going to try this.
Well, once you get into college, at least, now with the social media era, everyone knows about the great programs a lot earlier than they used to. But once I was in college and got, familiar with the legacy that was Kentucky cheerleading, and I knew I was going to take a big step and, probably lose credit hours and, trying to do all that. When I decided to go, I was like, you know what, I'm going to send emails to 2 people. I sent an email to Jomo, and I sent an email to James Speed. And Jomo responded almost immediately and just had a lot of great things to say about the program. And I went down for a clinic. I was there for 20 minutes, and I knew that that's where I wanted to go.
So you transfer to Kentucky. First of all, you try out at Kentucky. So I know that Kentucky tryout as planned is extremely stressful. It's meant to be that way. Kind of talk about, did you make Blue Squad right away? Did you make Blue Squad your first year? So talk about that. How was your first tryout and kind of the experience of, as a first year, getting put on Blue Squad?
Well, it was great. It was weird because I was one of the older people that made the team, but it was my first year. But yeah, the Kentucky tryout process, it is stressful, but it's so much fun for the same reason I talked about falling in love with the culture in the first place. Is everybody's just so excited and so good. And, when you have a passion for being an elite athlete and you walk into a place where there's a bunch of other elite athletes, like it just makes you want to be better. So I never really saw tryouts as like a super stressful thing. I thought tryouts was so much fun and so exciting. And I think my favorite part about a collegiate tryout at, some of the programs that have created great traditions for themselves is everybody cheers for one another. Like everybody wants everybody to do their absolute best. And so the energy is just incredible. And I loved, every year I always looked forward to tryouts because it was so much fun.
Yeah. So but when you were at Illinois State, were you staffing NC at the time then?
No, I did. So you're right. I've kind of been around the world. The summer out of my senior year of high school, I actually did a summer with UCA.
Okay.
And it just, at that time, just wasn't a good fit for kind of my headspace about cheerleading. And so I worked for like 7 years for another local company in Illinois.
Okay.
And then once I moved home from Kentucky, that's when I started working with NCA because I was working with speed camps, which had been bought out by Varsity, but it hadn't been put under an umbrella. So once I got home and worked, I think it was the second or third year I was maybe, I don't know, but at some point, a few years into me being back home, they took speed camps, which was a Varsity brand, and placed us, which was basically Illinois Midwest based, and Leroy, who was kind of running the speed camps that were happening in Oklahoma, they decided to put us all under the NCA umbrella. So that's kind of how that transitioned over to NCA.
Okay. So you actually didn't work with NCA till after Kentucky?
Correct.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many years were you at UK?
3.
You were at 3 years.
Yeah. My nationals were 6, 7, and 8.
6, 7, 8. Gotcha. Okay. So talk about the experience of competing at Kentucky. Obviously, one of the premier programs. Some people would argue probably the premier program. Just talk about the nationals process and kind of what that taught you in regards to being great, preparing. Really, the mindset of winning every year.
Well, that's one thing that's just special is I think the thing I took most out of my time competing at Kentucky and just being around all those extremely hardworking individuals was, if you go into a competition being the most prepared team, you're going to, maximize your opportunity for victories, And so that's where my work ethic comes from as a coach or as a director or, whatever part of the world I'm working in at that point, or choreographer, is that if I work harder than everybody, I'm going to be more successful than everybody. And I think that's the piece that people sometimes take for granted when they think about Kentucky. It's like, oh, they have full ride scholarships, they get all this talent. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Kentucky always has, the most talent, if not one of the most.
Yep.
But that's not the reason we're so successful. It's the focus on perfection and the hard work. I don't remember a day. Technically we only practiced 3 days a week, and we lifted on the other 2.
Yep.
I don't know if that's changed, but every day somebody was in the gym stunting somewhere, or or doing something to get better, and just creating that culture for every level of programs that I'm with now, from my little youth 3 to USA to working with Weber State or whatever. It's like, y'all need to work harder than everybody else. You got to put in extra time.
So, for everybody that's joining us here, again, I'm here with Jared Erlenbaugh. If you have any questions, we'll do a Q&A here later in the show. At the bottom, you're going to see a question mark that looks like a deck of cards. Tap on that. Feel free to send any questions that you have for Jared, and he will answer those later in the show. I remember one of the first things in regards to you that I remember when I was coaching at the high school level was the TV show Cheerleader U. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember you were on
the
that.
OGs.
Yep. Because I remember, like Cheerleader Nation was out at that time, and then I remember talking to Jomo last week and said, hey, with the Cheer show on Netflix, which is absolutely blowing up, would you consider doing a show like that? And he was like, and he was kind of torn because the exposure is obviously great, especially today, compared to what was it, 10 years ago when that show existed or more, but social media.
Really.
Obviously like Navarro and all those kids have now blown up social media wise, but it's these cameras are in your face and you probably can't prepare as well, or you kind of watch what you say, maybe, you kind of filter yourself a little bit. Kind of talk about that experience about being on a cheerleading reality show while preparing for nationals.
Yeah. It was interesting. They, and I don't know how exactly they did it for the Netflix show, but, they divided our season sort of into like 6 episodes. And because they were only with us like 5 or 6 times. Okay. So they came in for camp, they came in for nationals, they came in for tryouts, and then there were like sections of the year that they also came for. And then essentially everybody who knows me knows I'm very jaded and I don't like reality television at all. Because I know it's not real. And it would be like, you'd be in the middle of working on a stunt, whatever. I remember we were working our back handspring pull-ups at one point, and me and my partner at the time, Jenna, we were really good at that stunt. But there was one of the times they were there, we were having like a rhythm issue. And we were like talking, trying to figure it out. And they kept like coming up and being like, can you say that again? Can you like repeat that? So like we would be like acting as if we were saying the things to each other live. And it was just distracting. But I mean, it's cool for that moment because obviously I said I just loved my time at Kentucky. My second year there probably wasn't my favorite, but just to have a snapshot of your career kind of immortalized in that way. And some of my athletes now will get on YouTube and be like, Jared, we watched this like Cheerleader youth thing, and like you were on it. And I'm like, I was young and an athlete once, I didn't just roll into the gym and start coaching. So it's an interesting experience. And I think ours never really got into much of like the drama a little bit of it, but it was like the inner workings of like how hard we were pushing or fighting
Mm-hmm.
to like win.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the cheer show, the reason I think it's so popular is it like dove in a little bit deeper into people's lives.
Yep. Yep.
And the show they did about us was more documentary-ish
Mm-hmm.
than it was trying to create like a show.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was talking to Jomo how it almost like these shows are kind of a curse because you guys
Yeah.
didn't win that year. And then the
Nope.
next year they followed UCF. They didn't win that year.
Mm-hmm.
And so like these shows almost have been kind of a curse. And, I don't know. I mean, you don't want to ever, I mean, big thing about coaching is no excuses, get the job done.
Right, exactly.
But
but there's no playbook on
Yeah.
how to navigate those situations.
Mhm.
Like how do we make sure the focus stays on our eventual goal? And that's why I said I wasn't like a huge fan of it because I feel like it sometimes did take focus away. But I mean, like I said, it was cool to see and I think they did a good job of capturing pieces of the process
Mhm.
to where, for people outside of the program that sometimes just see Kentucky as this like, whoa, like to see that like we're human too and we have to go through the same ups and downs and struggles. And I got hurt that year, so like that part was like in the show. A bunch of different things happened. So
Again, here with Jared Erlenbaugh, talking about his Kentucky experience being a UK cheerleader. Again, we'll be doing a Q&A later. So if you have any questions for Jared, feel free to tap on the question mark at the bottom of the screen and send us some questions, and he'll be happy to answer them later. So you started at Illinois State and ended up transferring to Kentucky. What was your area of study? What did you study in school?
So when I was at Illinois State, I was doing, it was called commercial recreation. So basically like sports business. And then when I transferred, I switched over to essentially kinesiology and, biomechanics.
And at the time, well, did you actually, I mean, did you from the beginning think or know, I'm going to try to make this cheerleading thing a career?
Oh,
or
yeah, I knew.
You knew? Okay.
I knew from the first year I cheered that I wanted this to be what I did.
Okay. Why? What was it? I mean, because for some people, they don't really know.
Yeah.
And really at that time, I mean, not to date us, but we're about the same era. I mean, this is 10, 15 plus years ago where, full-time college positions are very rare.
Right.
Even at the time in All-Stars, like gyms aren't the big old gyms like they are today where you can
Correct.
make a really good living and full-time living doing a gym.
Yeah.
Kind of, I guess, why at that time, when there was definitely a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of felt like I had something to offer the greater cheer world. And I just had a passion for it. I have a passion for people. And it just I always felt happiest when I was doing something in the cheerleading world. So I was like, if I can figure out a way to make this my future, I'm going to do that. And pretty early in the game, when I was about 18, is when I started to get opportunities to choreograph things.
Okay.
And I knew that through choreography, there would always be an outlet for me to stay, connected to the cheerleading world. And then as, my years go and Kentucky happened, I started to realize how many opportunities were out there because of my affiliations with some of the programs that I was with. I was like, okay, I can make this work.
So you graduate from Kentucky. Then what's next? You graduate from Kentucky. What is lined up for you?
So I stayed in Kentucky for 2 years after I finished. I coached at Henry Clay High School.
Okay. Yep.
I know that a couple more, like it's like Jomo coached at Henry Clay at one point, like Blake Johnson coached there after me. So like a ton of people that were on Kentucky went through the ranks of coaching at Henry Clay. So I stayed there for 2 years. I was also coaching at Kentucky Elite at the time.
Okay.
So did those opportunities. And then I was still coming home over the summer to work camps for that small company I told you I worked for a while. So did that. And then kind of based on what you said in your last question, with Kentucky, Moorhead, Louisville, all of the great cheerleading programs in Kentucky. And at the time, there was, only a couple all-star gyms. It was Kentucky Elite. If you went to Louisville, it was gym time, Pep Club still existed at the time. At that point, it was like so saturated. There were so many people trying to create cheer, opportunities for themselves. And I was like, this market is too saturated to do everything I want to do as quickly as I want to do it. So I moved home back to Illinois. And then that's when I started working for speed camps and then started upping all my choreography stuff. So that's why I came home and started doing all that.
What did, I guess, like, what was it about choreography? I mean, for me, I definitely do a couple choreographies a year, but I know you do an ungodly amount of choreography a year. I am so jealous of people like you, like Blake Johnson and Josh McCurr. I don't know how you guys just keep thinking of stuff that's so innovative and so different. I guess, how do you do, like, what is kind of some, for anybody out there looking to maybe get into choreography, like, how do you keep coming up with new stuff? And more, I mean, for me, it would be like when you're choreographing 10, 20 plus routines a year, how do you just not keep recycling stuff,
So I do more like 60, but
exactly.
But and this, when I tell people this, it's kind of like people think it's a little cliche, but when I do a routine, I don't go in with like an idea of what I want to do. I kind of let that team's talent and that team's skill set kind of dictate how the routine moves. So I usually start from like where the stunt sequence is and kind of work backwards from there, and then move forwards after the stunt sequence just to make the transition smooth. But like, if I look at a routine and I'm like, okay, we have a large varsity team, there's 20 kids out there, and we're in the stunt sequence, and I go, okay, we're going to do standing tumbling before the stunt. Where are my girls that can do one to tucks? And then like everybody, it's like mostly like over on the left side of the mat.
Yes.
There's a ton of them. I go, okay, so how can I make something move where those people are moving towards that side to get them close? And I create like some diagonal movement that goes that way because all of them land closer to where they're, and then create a visual stunt thing over here with the girls that don't have it. Those kind of moments is the routine kind of, if you keep an open mind and allow the kids' talent to dictate where it goes, a lot of the visuals and creative stuff kind of comes naturally because every team's skill set is different.
Yeah. Yep. For people that don't know, Illinois high school cheerleading is one of the most cutthroat competitive things I've ever been able to see and experience. And I mean that like for the most part in a good way. Obviously when you have competition, things, whatever, but for the most part in a very good way, in regards to, Illinois is one of the first states to make cheerleading a sport. And so I know once that happens, schools and ADs all of a sudden they take, I think, more of an interest because, hey, this 100%. This is a state championship now.
Right.
So would you say that when you moved back home, that was kind of because for people who don't know, Jared does a lot of work with a lot of the Illinois high school teams. Was that kind of your foot in the door to what has become today where you've really been able to work with a lot of those teams? Okay.
My relationships with my high school teams and high school like choreographies kind of helped create every opportunity that I have today. I think I text her probably like 4 or 5 times a year. The first team in Illinois that took a shot on me doing their like full choreography when I was done at Kentucky and was about to move home. I think my first year I did them was my last year I was still living in Kentucky, was Grant High School. Veronica, I met her at camp and kind of talked to her about choreography, and she took a shot. And then their routine, they were such a good team that year. They were still medium. It was before they went co-ed. They were still medium all girl. And it was just kind of one of those magical routines that just kind of everything just worked out great. The team was awesome. Loved them. And that opened up a ton more opportunities. The next year I added like South Elgin and Belvedere North. So these like big name programs that, I've been with for a long time started to add on based on those. And then right around the same time is when we started our quarter season program. when I was at UA. Because when I first moved home, I started working at Ultimate Athletics. So we did a quarter season all-star program, and that program kind of exploded and got huge. And like that relationship and the quarter season is kind of what attracted, I think attracted USA to what we were doing, because last year they wanted to start experimenting with having the U.S. national teams, the junior teams, to be more like a regional representation rather than just it has to just be a team. And that's essentially what we were doing with our quarter season program, is we were creating a short season, you know, world's teams, summit teams, all that kind of stuff, in order that kind of parlayed into the USA opportunity, which then I've kind of always said I got very lucky that my cycle of cheerleading all kind of feeds itself. So it started with my choreography, which then gave me the relationships with these kids to recruit them to do quarter season. Then those quarter season kids, a lot of them come and staff for us now.
Yep.
So they're helping the camp volume to get more and it just kind of is this, and then USA happened. So everything kind of feeds itself, which is awesome. I got very lucky.
Here with Jared Erlenbaugh, we're talking about now his transition after Kentucky into post-college life, but more specifically his choreography and everything in Illinois. Again, if you have any questions for Jared, tap on the question mark at the bottom of the screen and send us some questions if you have any for him. So what people don't know about, again, the state of Illinois is not only is it a state, but kids are not allowed to do high school and all-stars at the same time, which is why you created the quarter season team.
Correct.
And then
our state series ends in usually the first weekend of February. And then basically we have tryouts the day after state and run like a full season all-star team for like a quarter of the year. So we created, this year we had 6 teams. And we got up to about 160 athletes.
I saw that. That was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that came in, and across all levels. We ended up we have 2 worlds teams. So it's kind of like a crazy experiment that we always laugh about. Like, why are you psychos doing this? And then with quarter season, so this past year, the manager at the ICE-Barrington location moved on. And we were like, Darlene Fanning, from the owner of all the ICE locations, and and Jess, who is one of the other co-owners, had like long conversations trying to figure out who would take over, because we wanted the gym to succeed and continue to grow, and they had a really good year. And a couple options fell through, and they were like, Jared, will you just do it? So you see the picture you have up is 2 of my UV babies, Ultraviolet, my J5. They're so good. I love them.
Oh, they're super good. Yeah.
And I miss them so much. Yeah, so that kind of, again, everything fed itself and kind of got me back into a full season all-star position.
So when you transition now you're at ICE-Barrington, and director there and coach, I've always been blown away by the quarter season team that you've been able to create. It started at Ultimate Athletics and now at ICE. I've always said,
you kids.
I always say I appreciate you, because yes, you have sent me some great kids, or some. This actually leads into my next thing is just Illinois has got so much talent, and I think of states like Illinois and Georgia is the other one that I wish they could send teams to UCA high school nationals. Oh my gosh, I think they would do really well if they could compete at the national level. But unfortunately, they're not allowed to, but because of their state rules. But you kind of brought it up then, transitioned into the USA Cheer Junior Coed. And I can't stress enough. I can't stress enough that routine was unfreaking believable, especially when you're dealing with 16-year-olds and younger. I mean, that's, to me, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Again, you guys were selected for this year, and obviously that's all up in the air right now. But kind of talk about that experience of representing your country, bringing in, even though you're all in the same area, you're still bringing in kids from all these different programs, different techniques, different styles, to try to make something work in like 2 months. Kind of talk about that experience.
it was probably one of the honors of my entire life to be able to do that and to direct these kids in the opportunity to, put a flag on their chest. And I've always told all the athletes I've ever coached that being a great athlete and a great teammate is about, being part of something bigger than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's any better representation of that than when you go out as a representation of the United States of America to, show the world that, we run this. Like, cheerleading's ours, and you're never going to take it from us. So I think that opportunity for those kids, it was just so cool. And you talk to most of the kids that were on that team last year, they obviously will talk about how great the competitive aspect was and the preparation and just being part of that whole journey together. But they'll all talk about just the experience of coming in and seeing all the other countries, or the cultural exchange, or, I think for some of my athletes, I think the most eye-opening experience that they ever had was when we practiced with the premier teams.
Yeah.
And them being able to just see that caliber of cheerleading and see like what it meant to be like a truly elite college level USA premier athlete was just like completely eye-opening and changed all of their perspective about, I mean, my kids work their tails off, but they, when you see like the best in the world, they're like, oh wow, I need to work harder. So it was such a cool experience to have all these kids that mean so much to me and mean so much to the state of Illinois and Illinois cheerleading to kind of get a glimpse of that culture. I think you talked about Illinois being such a talented state. I agree, but there's nothing past high school available for them in Illinois. They have to come to you. They have to go to Lindenwood. Like, they have to kind of go out of the state to get an elite cheerleading experience. So a lot of these kids aren't familiar with it. So, and once they got to literally just see it live and up close, it like changed all of them. Like, I've never seen those kids, and I give Coed Premier a ton of the credit for why USA Junior Coed did so well when they competed, because they watched them over those couple days of practice, and like it completely changed my kids. It flipped a switch. They were like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. So it was incredible. And I'll tell you, Steve, if Miss Rona finds a way out the door and ICU finds a way to reschedule. You thought last year was good?
Yeah. I mean, obviously you're not going to give away anything. I mean, was this year better, in your opinion?
It is better. Yep.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I hope so too. I mean, I tell people, I mean, I think Worlds is an unbelievable experience. It's a spectacle.
Yeah.
I really do enjoy UCA high school and college nationals. I think those are two fun competitions. I love ICU. I love
it's everything.
It's everything.
The opening ceremonies, all of it. Yeah.
It is. There's something like you already talked about it. Representing your country. There's just something about it. Just the chills, the cheers, the crowds are getting into it from all over the world. If you've never been to ICU, people, you need to go sometime. It is an unbelievable experience. It's amazing. I see Blake's making some comments with USA. Hello, Blake Johnson. Good seeing you, buddy. Yes, it's unbelievable. And it's amazing how greatness breeds greatness. You know what I mean? I went to the U.S. showcase last year before you guys all competed, and I just remember being like, holy crap. I just couldn't believe it. You guys were unbelievable. But something I did want to touch on, because I know it's something that's very important to you, is NCA speed camps. And how did you get involved with NCA speed camps? And kind of for people that don't know, I think NCA speed camps is an innovator in regards to being really one of the first like skill-based camps out there that really push skill for summer camps. I mean, people think summer camps, they're thinking the traditional, like, let's learn some cheers, let's learn some dance. And speed camps did not do that. Speed camps is, you want to compete, learn some skills, here you go, hire us. So kind of talk about how'd you get involved with NCA speed camps and kind of what you're doing with them.
So, like I said, when I moved home, I started working for what at that time was just speed camps.
Mm-hmm.
And it was essentially, more than anything, it was a ton of the Louisville, University of Louisville cheerleaders that came and ran camps in
Mm-hmm.
the Illinois area. And then when varsity bought the brand and then put us under the umbrella, Leroy McCullough
Mm-hmm.
became like the national director for speed camps. And
Yep.
I had, at that point, I'd been head instructing in Illinois for a while and had created a lot of the relationships I have with coaches with my choreography or having them at camp or whatever. And obviously I'm a student of Illinois cheerleading. So I kind of just had a good relationship with a lot of the coaches. So when they started like merging the two and trying to kind of merge the two cultures, that's when they essentially reached out and allowed me to kind of be like we always say it like this, it's not like an official title, but I'm kind of one of like the regional directors for just the speed camp programming.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, speed camps are exactly, we always say like, it's meant to be a fast-paced, skill-based camp.
Mm-hmm.
And that at speed camps, we teach technique and techniques for everybody. I know a lot of people affiliate speed camps with like, you have to be elite to come.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't agree with that. I feel like we, especially over the past few years, we've like definitely buckled down a lot on focusing mostly on just great fundamental technique.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of like coaches meetings and stuff where we like teach the coaches how to troubleshoot and break down, specific skills. We break it up into like tick-tocking stunts, twisting stunts, baskets, and we like help teach the coaches how we are coaching their athletes and how they can take those same lessons back to their practices. And then we go out of our way to try and be as innovative as possible with giving our customers as many tools as we can to do, the new elite skills, the new, like, what's the new legalities? What's the new this? I don't feel like anybody in the nation did a better job than us than this past year teaching people how to invert. With that being a new rule for this past year.
Game changer at the high school level.
Oh, it's 100%. And I think it's just I think probably a year or two from now, it's going to transition into the, like, college cheerleading is going to have an explosion in a year or two of just better
100% agree.
skills, because all these kids will have done everything already.
Yep.
It's just you add another quarter flip, you know what I mean? So these kids are going to be so prepared. But yeah, that's what we do. Speed camps, we try and hire the best cheerleaders in the country who we teach them how to be the best teachers in the country. And it's all about, getting these athletes to understand like how to use the athletic capabilities they already have to maximize what they're capable of doing. Whether it be, we don't do cheers and chants really, but we want them to be able to have great skills that can go on a sideline. And essentially we like customize everything. So we have, if people want to bring signs and work on chants and cheers, we have those available to them.
Yep.
If they want to come and just work on baskets the whole time, that's available to them. It's 100% a custom camp within mass camp settings.
Yep.
We do home camps. We do choreography. All my choreography goes through speed camps. So yeah, I think we offer something really special that people are trying to imitate, but they never will.
I know that basically speed camps has built this brand that's just very loyal. People love the speed camps if they've gone to it. I think it's one of those. Exactly. I think it's just one of those camps that's so different in a good way, in my opinion, but either you probably try it, you love it or hate it kind of thing.
I agree. Yeah. There are people that come in and get very overwhelmed because we just go. Like, there's no breaks. Like, as far as like the day doesn't get broken up with like, oh, you're going to learn your sidelines now, or you're going to do, so it's like, let's skills. And when people come in without a great fundamental technique at first, they'll sometimes, they'll line up across the way from, last year's state champion who's been with us for 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yep.
And be overwhelmed and feel intimidated. And we are trying our best to make all of our customers understand, like, our goal is to get you there by creating great building blocks of your technique and fundamentals.
Mm-hmm. Again, here with Jared Erlenbaugh, talking about his NCA speed camps and obviously all the choreographies you do, which, as you mentioned, are 60 plus a year, which still just blows my mind. I can barely do 2 a year, to be honest with you. But something that a lot of people I don't think really know is you have been very successful at the collegiate choreography level also. Been working with Weber State now for quite a few years, who's really blown up in the last few years or two. Holy cow, that program is.
Yeah.
I mean, they've always been very good, but holy cow, their partner stunning is ridiculous.
They're
And then
amazing.
and then this year, I actually got to talk to Lindsay from Oklahoma State, and then
Yeah.
she had brought you in this year at Oklahoma State. So kind of talk about what is the big difference for you working with college-aged athletes and college-level talent.
Well, Weber, I just have to thank Leroy again, because he kind of created that relationship for me, 5 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this since the first year I worked with them. I said, if I ever had to do it over again,
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely go to Kentucky still. But if Kentucky would not have worked out for me in my life for some reason, I would have gone to Weber.
Okay.
The culture there is just, they're so athletic and hardworking, and it's all about just being athletically superior to your competition. The amount of time they spend working out and getting extra reps, and their actual strength and conditioning program, they work so hard. And I just love that about them. I think as far as the choreography piece, when you go to the college level, and whether it was because I work with Iowa State as well, I do both of their routines. So when you get to the college level, it's understanding that these kids are coming with, and some of them have been coached by some of the best coaches in the country. Some of them are going to be incredible leaders in this industry moving forward. It's crazy. I go to Weber and I'm, choreographing for people that, over the summer I worked with, So it's a little bit different because you have to make sure that those athletes feel like they're contributing to the process a little bit more, because then they'll get more invested and they'll trust you. I think it was interesting going through it again this year with Oklahoma State because, I developed a trust with Weber pretty quickly. I think them knowing that Leroy had my back and that I had cheered at Kentucky, they kind of understood that partner stunning culture. But going through it again and making a brand new group of athletes trust me was interesting, because I was listen, I know you, you guys are going to be incredible. Trust this process. What do you feel this? Does this feel right? Does that transition feel good for you? Are you getting involving them in the process is something I try and do a little bit more when I do college choreography. Just because then they'll buy in a lot better. I got lucky again this year because at Oklahoma State, one of my favorite athletes I've ever coached, he did quarter season for me for 4 years, Nathan.
Okay.
It was his senior year. And then Lindsay Driscoll, who was a USA all-girl kid and works for speed camps. She's also on the team. So, I had a lot of familiarity with kids already. So, it was awesome. And that was such a cool honor. It's obviously upsetting that NCA Nationals got canceled and, we weren't able to showcase, all these kids, incredible hard work. But it was a huge honor for, Lindsay to take a chance on me. And because I've never done a 1A college. So it's my first one. And I feel like it went great.
Yeah.
So I hope so. And I just hope that that's a relationship we can continue, because I had a lot of fun working with that program. I like them a lot.
I find it very interesting you talked about involving the kids more at the college level. That's one thing I quickly learned here at Purdue was you're technically dealing with adults, although
Correct.
that's questionable. but Yeah, and like you said, some of these kids are extremely knowledgeable already.
Yep.
Very good. When I interviewed Jomo last week, I know at Kentucky that's a big thing. At Kentucky, they involve their athletes a lot in
Yep.
the choreography, and obviously you come from that culture, you know. But when you're working with people like you or a Blake Johnson, who for your age are probably way more advanced in terms of like cheer knowledge than most, but probably have some good ideas. And I think that
Right.
you know, involving the athletes, because you said it best, they feel more invested in the routine than I feel. You know,
Yep.
they want to own it more.
Yeah.
What would you say for you as a choreographer is kind of your own style? What makes you different from most choreographers, would you say?
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
I try my best to be a very score sheet choreographer.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes an effort to be creative for the sake of being creative instead of for the sake of maximizing a part of the score sheet sometimes gets in some choreographers' way.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I think my biggest strength is I'm good at identifying a team's culture quickly and making the routine reflect their biggest strengths as a culture. You know, like Weber, I'm like, they're getting more of like the cheerleader type boys. You know, they're starting to get people out of cheer athletics and Cali and, you know, those boys that can come in and like can, you know, do choreography pieces. But specifically Weber, especially like the first year I worked with them, like having a boy do a seat roll was like not going to happen.
Yeah.
But so it was like, okay, but I don't need to make you look like Sam Houston. I need to maximize what Weber is. I was like, let's do a more like traditional type style of like, we're just going to outskill you. And just be smart about, hey, let's add a couple visuals here and there that are a little bit simple. Use the girls a little bit more for like the choreography pieces. You know, finding those ways to just identify what a team's strengths are and make the routine fit their culture. I think that's one of the reasons for my longevity in the choreography world.
I just want to let you know, you've been getting a lot of UV love on here. A lot of people just saying UV, UV. I think, so clearly a lot of your UV kids or parents are watching right now.
Yep.
And how, I mean, I was talking, we did a live stream, Nicole and I, my assistant on our Purdue one, just talking about tryouts and how we're really, it's amazing how much cheerleading's in our lives, because I just absolutely am missing it so much. I miss seeing my athletes and working with them. Like, how have you been dealing with the whole self-quarantine thing and self-isolation? Because most cheer people we're not introverted at all. So how have you been doing, and what have you
Social
been doing?
distancing is antithetical to
who
we are. I had a very, like, it hit me hard at first. I like my whole job, whether, you know, it's preparing for camps, the gym, USA, like everything I do is cheerleading based, and it's around being around these incredible athletes. I always say these kids are my lifeblood. Like, I get out of bed in the morning to go like be around these kids. They just make you feel good about, you know, what you're contributing to the world.
Yeah.
And UV in particular, it's been due to the fact I've done quarter season in choreography this year. UV is the first full season team that I have coached in about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So it's amazing how much they've imprinted on my heart, and I miss those kids so much. They're just the goofiest little pack of weirdos, and I just absolutely love them to death, and they work so hard. And you know, anytime you take over an entire gym, an entire program, and then it's like, okay, and the new gym director is our coach.
Yep.
And the new gym director comes in with a completely different idea of what the culture should be at the gym. Those kids, it was hard. And I think they bought in, and they started to see a lot of the benefits of what was they started to, oh, wow, like, my technique is getting really good, that I can hit anything coach asked me to do. And right when that turn and they were really, really starting to come together and all that stuff, that's when Miss Rona decided to rear her ugly head. And, you know, I just miss those kids so much and know that there are going to be so many successful people that come out of those 29 girls. Like they're something else, and they work so hard, and I just love them to death. I miss them. A couple gyms across the country are starting to take the step of, you know, ending our seasons. And we did that yesterday as far as our postseason with Summit and stuff like that. So a lot of the UV kids are all kind of in mourning. The whole gym is that we're not like this season's technically over. As far as our non-worlds teams, and we're making that decision as more information comes out. But I think that's just been hard on a lot of, you know, all the gyms are just trying to hold on to themselves and make sure we make the best decision and keep these families safe. And it's like, if they're doing Summit in June, July, Worlds in June, July, like this stuff's not going to be done. Like Florida went on lockdown yesterday. Like Florida's going to be in the middle of their worst when all this is supposed to be happening. So we were like, let's make the safest decision for our athletes and, you know, start the mourning process now, I guess, because we need to start preparing for whatever next year looks like.
That I was going to ask, you know, obviously feel free to plug it, kind of what's the game plan for ICE-Barrington and kind of the game plan for summer camps? I know that's all up in the air too. It's just, I know literally things are changing hourly here, but kind of what is the game plan for you in regards to preparing for next season for All-Stars and then for summer camps?
So I'll start with ICE. And again, this is, like I said, this is all kind of in the air. So some of this is what we've talked about. Some of this is what we think might happen. Some of this is what we want to happen. But we want to move forward with having our tryouts, hopefully the same time frame that we originally planned, and then move on from there. But that is with the thought that, you know, we're out of this by mid-May. Which I don't know if that's realistic. So, and then, you know, we'll start to adjust those dates as we start getting more information from, you know, local leaders and figuring out the safest way forward. And then for summer camps, I've had a couple conference calls with Leroy and James and Tucker trying to figure out kind of our game plan of, like, right now we're just trying to figure out what we're doing with staff training. Like, do we not conduct a staff training and try and do that, you know, as more localized, or we do a virtual staff training, or, you know, we're starting to talk about what options we have of maybe we just bring in the first years, you know, to do staff training to kind of like eliminate as much of any sort of like unhealthy push to rush back. And then we get, you know, a staffer gets sick because somebody at the airport got him or something, you know. I don't want, you know, everybody's trying to figure out and navigate the best way forward and make sure we keep all of our people safe. But we're forging ahead just as if we would have otherwise with both locations, just as if next year is going to run normal. And then we'll make smart adjustments. I know the whole varsity brand is, you know, been laying off or letting go of a ton of people to try and help keep the whole thing sustainable. Everybody's making tough choices, and so we're all just trying to rally behind each other and, you know, make sure we all get through this stronger on the other side. So
I will say one of the Krista from Alabama talked about this yesterday, and I agree with her. I think it sucks. This usually happens in life where some sort of negative brings out the positive sometimes. You know, I just feel like the spirit industry as a whole has really come together through this, and people have been sharing tips on how to stay in shape, sharing videos, tagging each other about, hey, share this stuff. And I just feel like it's been, I feel like it has brought together the spirit industry.
I agree with you. I feel like the biggest advantage, I know Debbie Love made a big post today about how we should consider this a gift of time. I feel like the connection to each other and our teams of doing these Zoom practices and all this stuff. And Nicole talked about it the other day too, was that this is where we get to focus on a different piece of our athletes, a different piece of our coworkers. I know last night, because yesterday was the day that ICE made our decisions, probably the vast majority of the Barrington staff got on a Zoom and just talked for like 3 hours, and, kind of, I think it's going to bring everybody a little bit closer together on the interpersonal level, which sometimes at the end of the day is more important than any extra rep you got of a stunt or a tumbling pass or whatever. So I agree that I think it's going to allow the spirit industry as a whole to come together and rally and realize, how interconnected we really are. But then I also think it's going to allow everybody to create better, more interpersonal relationships with their athletes and with each other, because we kind of have to.
Yeah.
There's nothing else we can do right now. Yeah, we can get on Zooms and tell them to do as many squats as we want, but if we don't use the opportunity to get closer with our kids and to, understand their psyches a little bit more, then, we will have squandered an opportunity.
100% agree with you, man. That was very well said. Jared Erlenbaugh, I just want to thank you again for coming on. We're at our 1 hour max. and although I've gone over with multiple people, I try to keep things within that hour, because you just never know with technology. But I'm sorry, but again, for everybody that joined us in the beginning, but technical difficulties, but we got past that. But I'm glad I got to hear your story, man. And I just want to thank you again for making time to be here today. And also, you already said it. Thank you for sending me some great athletes here at Purdue. You really have. And I know that when they come from you, they're well coached and well disciplined people. Definitely well disciplined. So, but Jared,
the root of all things, Steve.
I know. Well, thanks again, Jared. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'm sure our paths will cross soon, my friend.
You too, man. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too, buddy.
Everybody.
Jared Erlenbaugh. Great guy. I've known Jared for many years now. A great interview. So want to talk about next week. I have my last week of full chats here. 5 days. We're going one more full week with 5. And next week I have some excellent guests, and I hope you're ready for them. We are on Monday. We have Julie Horine, head cheerleading coach at Indiana University. Yes, Julie is a good friend of mine, a great colleague. When I started at Purdue, she gave me some great advice, and has been at Indiana for, I won't say how many years, but she's been there for a few years. But obviously, Indiana University, one of the best programs out there in the country. And I'm quite sure our talk next Monday will be a hoot. Then on Tuesday, I have Ben Schreiber, head coach at The Ohio State University, another good friend of mine. So Ben will be joining me on Tuesday. On Wednesday, Ryan O'Connor, new head coach at Western Kentucky, was at Ole Miss and at University of Alabama, Birmingham. One of the first ever cheerlebrities. She became very well known for a cheerleader Nation and Dunbar, and her mom, Donna Martin, who's also a cheer legend in the coaching industry. And so on Wednesday, I have Ryan. And then on Thursday, the man, the legend, Tony Nash will be joining me. And on Thursday, Indiana All-Girl, USA Cheer All-Girl, Mr. Everything. An excellent coach. Very excited to interview Tony next Thursday. And then kicking off, finishing out our week, Kaylin Cook, assistant coach, head coach, University of Louisville, longtime coach at Gym Time All-Stars, and a new co-owner and coach at the new Cheer Athletics St. Louis facility. So again, we have some great coaches, great people coming in next week to interview here live on Full Out Chats. So again, thank you all for joining. One more thank you to Jared and all my guests this week. You guys were great. Please follow us on YouTube and SoundCloud, Full Out Chat. So we are there if you missed this. Thank you for all the support. I've gotten some great feedback. Anything I can do to make it better, feel free to DM us or email us at fulloutchats fulloutchats@gmail.com. Again, fulloutchats@gmail.com. And please, if you enjoy us, please give us a subscription on YouTube and SoundCloud. We'd appreciate it. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great day. Stay healthy and stay safe.